Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Aeons. Welcome to Strange Aeons Radio. That's Eric Morgan over there.
Hello.
That's Vanessa Williams over there.
Good day.
I'm Kelly Young. Hey, you guys. Been forever since I've seen you, and there's so much to talk about, like Academy Award nominations.
Oh, yeah.
Those are not controversial or
Not
anything.
a little bit.
Right,
Very
so-
straightforward.
Pass right over that. Did you see there was not one female nominated in the Best Actor category? Not one.
That was not what I
And, and there were only 5 in the Best Actress category, and I feel like they really could have put 7 in there.
Wow. My brain had like a moment.
Hold on, what did he say?
Yeah, I was like, wait, I know that, and it makes it doubly complicated because the actors are no longer, it's no longer actor, actress.
Well,
Actresses got rid of the title actress,
Right,
so
yeah.
now actors can be female
well,
or
in the
male.
Academy,
And
though,
they
they
always should have been, because
Yeah.
the word
Yes.
doesn't work
Doesn't
as
mean
a,
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I was like, wait, I'm pretty sure there was a female that was up for a best actor. Just the female actor. Anyway.
yeah. Anybody have anything they want to say about that bullshit?
I mean, obviously, like, it's really frustrating to not have any females nominated for Best Director in a year in which there was a lot of really strong female directed content that came out. So
Yes. What would you have liked to have seen nominated?
I actually, even though it's not my favorite film of the year, and this is something we can talk about later, actually, Little Women is an incredibly strongly directed film. It's not really my cup of tea necessarily.
Sure.
I'm not super period drama based, but the direction in that is incredible. The way people physically move, their facial instincts, and the way in which they're expressing themselves, the way in which the story goes from one time period to another. It's so beautifully, masterfully just stitched. And I'm not talking about the editing. I'm talking about the whole construction and the way in which people told people to physically move around the frame. It was amazing.
What's the mise en scène?
Such good mise en scène and such good, I think that was one of the best performances I've seen from Laura Linney in a long time too. And Laura Linney's incredible. So
It's also fairly standard, not required, but fairly standard that the odds of you're getting nominated for Best Director go up greatly when your film's nominated for Best Picture.
yeah.
Granted, there's a lot more Best Picture nominations. I think there's, 7 or 8 this year?
I feel like a lot of them though are
But-
like, this person needs to finally get
Yeah.
nominated for a thing.
Well, that's largely what the Oscars
It really
are
does. It feels
often.
like they're always playing catch up.
It's kind of like, really? Robert De Niro got nominated for playing a gangster in a Scorsese movie?
Yeah.
That's new.
I know, right? My God, how strange is that? Is it Laura Linney that I'm thinking of?
I don't know. I haven't
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going to watch that movie because it had women in the title. And I was like, no thanks.
And Little Ones, my God.
Are
Not
they like
cool.
scary little?
Right, that would be awesome.
With little
Like
cushions?
miniature, like Bride of Frankenstein little.
There you go.
They're in a jar,
Excellent callback.
Nice-
right?
Nicely done.
It's for the people who actually listen. Our true fans, they'll get that. They will totally understand.
What do you? She's currently looking
Laura
something up.
Dern.
What might you?
That's
Oh,
what I
all right.
meant.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
Laura Linney, that's not the right person. Laura Dern. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah. It's awesome. And she just did Marriage Story, of which she's actually nominated for a bunch of stuff. I'm like, she's not as good in Marriage Story as she is in Little Women. That's all.
Wow, okay.
Okay.
What about you guys?
Well, I went and saw a bunch of cool movies. I mean, here's the thing. We got a ton of snow. I was off work for a week.
Oh, yeah.
And I did
jeez.
a ton of writing, and I thought, well, I haven't watched anything. And then when I started actually looking at the things I wanted to talk about, I was like, how am I going to fit all this in? So I want to start right off with, I saw Underwater. Did you guys see this?
No, not yet.
I thought it was fan-fucking-tastic.
That's what I've heard. I've heard that it's really good.
The only negative thing I heard was really dumb. And I think you commented on it or brought it up someplace about how It's just basically an Alien ripoff. It's like, oh, yeah, because we've never seen that before.
I
in a
know.
film.
I was like, we've seen that like
Or
so many
the
times in the
concept of a creature hunting people in an unknown area. Alien wasn't exactly what you'd call original either.
No.
It's just the way it handled it made it freaking great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the concept is Alien-like, but it's nothing like Alien.
Okay.
And it fucking moves at a rocket pace.
Oh man.
The premise is this underwater drilling company, I guess, that's at the bottom of the Marianas Trench or something, has drilled too low, and they start basically an earthquake, or an earthquake happens while they're down there, or something like that. Literally, that happens 40 seconds into the film.
Oh my God.
And then you are off and running because the pressure of the ocean is basically crushing this thing as they go along.
Wow.
And it just fucking takes off, which I wasn't expecting. And all of the character development was done on the run.
Wow.
There
So
was
it's sort of
Interesting.
almost more action than,
Yeah.
because it's advertised as like The Abyss or something, suspenseful horror.
It's like got the Abyss's budget and Deep Star 6's story.
Yes.
Nice
I'm in.
I just fucking loved it. I thought Kristen Stewart was fantastic.
I
And
was
I'm not a
just
huge
about to
fan
ask
of her.
about, yeah, because she can be really wooden and really like, I don't
Yeah.
know. She's played the same character a lot of times, so
Yeah.
I was very curious.
Yeah, and then who's the funny guy from? I think he's on the IT Crowd or no? What's the HBO show? T.J. Miller. I think
T.J. Miller?
Is that, no, well, I think that's the actor, isn't it? T.J. Miller. Does that sound familiar?
You're
to you
talking
guys?
about Barney
I think
Miller?
I know who
Like,
you're
what?
talking about, but I have no idea what their name is.
He's
I
on-
think he's been canceled.
Not the IT Crowd, but
Yeah, yeah. Why can't I-
Internet Story.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know.
Okay,
the
now I have
actor's
no idea
name.
what's happening.
Well,
I'm with the
I
audience.
guess the point I'm making.
You guys are also frustrated.
I guess
I
the
get
point
it.
I'm making is that by the way they cast everybody, you are also kind of able to tell who everybody's character is.
Oh, that's
So,
cool.
Yeah, so he shows up, and you're just kind of like,
Silicon Valley.
Wait, is he the guy from
Silicon
Dead-
Valley?
Oh, I was going to say, is he the guy from Deadpool?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yes, he's the bartender
that
from
guy.
Deadpool.
Okay.
Yeah. So as soon as you cast him, you kind of know who he is,
totally.
right?
Yeah.
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 And he is that guy in this film. I don't know if the humor was absolutely necessary because it moves so fast. You never really needed a break from like horror or
Break
something, which is
suspension or
what
anything.
usually what happens with
Yeah.
that comedic person.
Yeah.
But I thought everybody was great. I thought the reveal of the monster at the end was spectacular.
Cool.
You know, it's all over the internet what that monster is, and it's really clear when it suddenly rises, you know, with the tentacles coming out of its face and the gigantic bat wings behind it and everything. I was like, the fuck? This is, you know, clearly supposed to be Cthulhu. And
Didn't work on being a little, might be not.
well, I've heard people, you know, in the Lovecraft community are like, well, that's not Cthulhu at all. You know, it's more like Dagon. I'm like, okay, except that it looks just like the description of Cthulhu in the book. So I
Yeah.
think the guy, the actor, the writer and director were like, wouldn't it be great if at the end Cthulhu shows up?
That's right.
So it has like bat wings underwater?
Don't think too hard about this.
Okay,
it looks
sorry.
awesome.
Yeah.
You know what? If it looks awesome, I'm in. Sounds
Right.
great.
There you go.
Cthulhu is not a water creature. He's
No, he's
trapped
like a-
underwater.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway, loved it. I'd say go see it, but it bombed and is probably no longer at a theater near you.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
I guess I'll try to hunt it down quickly.
I'm
Very
sure
quickly.
it'll show up on everything. It's not a bomb thing. Well, let's get all our money back on VOD, so it will
Yeah.
show up for
It's
rent.
a
all over
very
the place.
strange film in the first place because it was shelved for like 3 years. It was finished a long time
really?
ago. Yeah.
Wow.
And I don't know why it was shelved. You know, you can kind of tell when any film gets a January release that this is their kind of dumping grounds for
Yeah.
films they don't know what to do with, and let's just try and make a couple of bucks
Hope
back
that
on it.
maybe it'll spark something and we'll get really lucky.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird though with January because I feel like all of these really great films sneak themselves into the previous year by releasing like December 31st.
Right. So they can Oscar qualify.
I don't see all the cool Oscar movies until the first 2 weeks of January.
Which is what they want
Yep.
you to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the actual new releases
Are not great.
are,
Yes.
January is a dumping.
Yeah. It's like you're lucky if one good movie comes out per week.
Speaking of that,
Yeah.
I went and saw 1917,
Oh,
So did I.
which mixed bag reaction.
Really? From you
Technically-
or from the audience?
Oh, no, it was in the Cinemark one that I go to, 21
okay.
and over. So it's a nice,
Quiet.
calm. Although there were a lot of people there. No, it was almost full.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As a technical achievement, holy shit. It is one of the best operations to get a movie story told in a way on screen that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It took me like 10 minutes into the movie before I started going, oh, yeah, I wonder where they're doing the cutting. Because it was so subtly done
So well done.
that it didn't just like rope. It's so obvious. Oh, he's going into the.
I think it's on the whip pans. That was
Yeah.
what I could
There are
figure
pans,
out. It has
and
to
there's
be in the whip
like when
pans.
they go through doors, which doesn't happen very often.
No, not
But
very
there's a
often.
few things, but there's not the obvious stuff like, oh look,
No.
here's a
It feels
beam in front of them. They walk, and the beam's like 4 feet wide.
We go
Or
into the back of a
something
character
clumsy.
and back out again. I didn't
Yeah.
see that happen either.
Like you were talking about get up and go. This film is nothing but get up and go.
And character development on the run.
Yeah. I felt it was really good, well worth watching, definitely worth seeing in a theater. It just didn't gut punch me like I thought it would at the end.
I actually had a very similar reaction in that I noticed there was a lot of sniffles around me near the
Yeah,
end of the
a little
film.
bit.
I'll cry pretty easily during movies. I just didn't have it. And I think it's because it's an amazing technical accomplishment, like you were saying. And I love that I'm on this journey, but the story isn't strong.
Right.
It's not like a really compelling, like actual story. It's very what you expect it to be, which is great, which is fine. I mean, you're just going through somebody's experience and that's kind of it. And then you're done. So it's a little almost anticlimactic, which I think it wants you to feel.
Well worth seeing.
Oh my God.
I was watching
See it in theater.
a making of afterwards on how they did it. And the other part of it's in the trailer, so I'm not being spoilery, where the guy's running outside the white trench and he runs into a guy. That was accidental.
Oh, really?
That wasn't intentional. And of course, good professional actor being a professional actor
Just
got up and
keeps
kept going. And it's such a great moment. My thinking was,
so good.
how did they plan that? Oh, they didn't.
That makes so much sense because there's so much physicality. Like it really does have that kind of Buster Keaton vibe of like when he's running away from boulders and there's just chaos and like in one visual, we're in a wide shot and you get to see all that's happening and all that's coming and everything that's going around and that chaos is building. It's really amazing to look at.
Yes. Oh God, yeah, man. The technical achievement is just ridiculous.
It's bananas. It's
They
literally
spent,
bonkers.
like months and months in rehearsal, 4 to 6 months or something like that,
Yeah.
rehearsing the segments of the film.
Wow.
To make it happen because they only got. I think that final scene was 2, maybe 3 takes. That big giant run. They could only afford to do like 3 times.
That makes sense.
Because they're blowing so much shit up, and there's so many people.
And how do you
involved.
reset that?
Oh,
Do you just move to a different field?
Hours.
like, and I will say, like, whoever did the set design / art department in general did an incredible job because you really do feel like you're in this World War.
Yeah.
What?
Trench warfare.
Trench warfare situation.
Ugly
Okay,
stuff.
so I have a question. I do know the basic premise of this story is that the soldier has to get word to a soldiers, a massive group of soldiers who are going to be
1600,
ambushed.
I think, or something like that.
Okay, so they couldn't take a plane.
Planes would shot down. They have moments of planes in there.
They're going into like freshly abandoned enemy territory.
The
They couldn't take a
premise
plane and
is-
just drop leaflets that say you're going to be ambushed.
The premise is
Interesting.
that they have, again, I don't think a plane would have gotten through because the idea is that this is a setup by the Germans. The Germans have moved the front line back a long ways. And the guy at the very front of the war thinks it's a retreat. So he's getting ready to just attack them. They do get high aerial intel, so maybe they could have. Intel they have shows that they're setting up, turn this into a giant destruction of these and then further on. They do have a few planes show up, but they get taken out.
Okay. I mean, I guess I would want to know some reason why on foot is the best option.
The way the movie's made, they could have been sending planes. They could have been sending carrier pigeons. They could have been doing all of that, and you would never know.
Okay. This is just another option.
Could just,
they have to try
it could just be the one that was perhaps the one that gets through.
Yeah, I mean that could. You're right. They would have been easily solved of the very beginning when he's recruiting the two guys or telling the two guys what's going on. Yeah. These are all the options we've got, but we need to do all the options we've got. So
right.
Yeah, I was wondering if he actually had sent several groups of 1 to 2 people out, and this just happened. I mean, you just don't know. You just don't know. And they do say in the beginning that the reason why they're only sending 1 person is it's faster, or 2 people, because it's faster than sending a troop of people. Because just every additional person slows things down drastically.
I get it. I'd be the worst soldier because they'd tell me that's the thing, and I was like, "Has anyone thought of dropping leaflets from a plane, sir?"
They do also imply why that won't. Actually, they imply a little bit why that wouldn't work in the movie.
Okay.
When the soldiers run into a group that's kind of in between, the leader of that battalion or whatever pulls the guy aside and said, "When you tell him this, make sure you have witnesses." Because I can't remember the exact line, but it's a pretty good line about some men fight for their country, some men fight for their glory. So make sure when you tell this particular guy your news, that everybody around you hears him say the exact same words.
I see. So that this guy doesn't decide, "Oh, fuck this, I'm going in anyway." Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because leaflets could have been, "Oh, that's just German propaganda," or...
Do we know, is this based off of anything real?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I'm pretty sure the way the trenches were built and all that structure of the film, all the stuff was very, very accurate. But
Yeah.
I know
I don't know
that
if it's a
the writer has said that the things that go on in the film are based on the stories of his grandfather or great-grandfather or something like that.
Wow.
But I don't know if the whole premise of having to send 2 troops to deliver this message is real.
Yeah. In real life, Germans retreated, set that up, they sent a carrier pigeon, and all went easy.
Right.
I know you saw a big one.
Oh, yeah. So I saw Color Out of Space.
Dun, dun, dun.
Finally. And actually, in Seattle, it's not playing very many places. So I was really stoked that the Egyptian was putting on. I don't know if they're doing more than one night, but it seemed at the time that it was a special event. So me and some friends bought some tickets. Man.
But it's an interesting hesitation going on here.
Oh, no. I mean, I have 2 very distinct thoughts about it. But I mean, I know that, we're on Strange Aeons radio. So it's really hard to express everything I feel like I should express. But I'll go ahead anyway.
Please do.
Yeah, do.
So the things that I loved about it, it's gorgeous. It's a film that I don't think could exist before right now, because to get across using CGI and in an almost low budget way, CGI that gives off existential dread. How do you do that in a movie? How do you say, okay, so look out that way, existential dread, go. Like it captures it in a way that I think is brilliant. They did such a great job. I love the way that they did use color. I love the way that Nicolas Cage is used. I think he should never do anything other than H.P. Lovecraft ever again.
He should definitely
found
keep
his calling.
More Richard Stanley work with him.
100%.
Good idea.
Oh my gosh, that is the perfect spot for him. And watching him go from normalcy to craziness, which fits so well with the story, it's just so good. But I did have a little bit of a problem as far as there was some story / maybe directing, maybe editing issues that I was having problems with, where characters would say or go places that didn't make any sense to me. So for example, our lead character, who's this, young beautiful woman.
I have to make a very strange comment at the moment. I don't know what's going on or where it's coming from, but right now you've got reflections in your eyeglasses that are the color of the color out of space.
Actually, that's a filter that they put on these
tinted?
glasses.
Oh,
yeah,
that's-
it's for screen. It's for screen so that I get less damage to my eyes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no. That's,
Please proceed.
Yeah, I have purple. It's purple-ish when it gets the right light. That's hilarious. Actually, it's coming through me.
Oh my.
I didn't tell you about this rock I came across the other day. It was pretty crazy. Some weird shit.
Anyways, yes.
Yeah. So, like, for example, this girl, she's out looking at the thing that fell from the sky with her family, and the guy who's the water table
Yes.
investigator, who it's, his kind of his story, is over, and her dad is like, go inside. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of get that because she's being maybe a little flirty, I guess, but I didn't see enough for her to be like, I mean, he's been introduced to this character and he doesn't know anything beyond he's a water table guy, which means he should be there to check the water table with this thing that landed.
I guess that reaction hit me as the first tinge of the color affecting him.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So, and then she goes in, and then her mom says, oh, well, you're dressed inappropriately and you're too sexy. And she like runs off and just is sobbing in a room. And I was like, what is this? Were you sexually assaulted? A moment because the mom feels really bad about what she did. And oh my God. And I was like, what? There's just little things here and there like that I was just really feeling weren't motivated. So there were enough of those that I didn't quite want to give it like a 5-star or even necessarily a 4-star. I kind of settled at 3.5 because it does so many things so well, but there are some story problems.
Part of what you're maybe running into, and you can disagree or back me up on this, Kelly, is that as Lovecraft fans who've been going to Lovecraft Festival for 13 years now or whatever he is, 14 years.
Yeah.
Part of it is a little bit of rose-colored glasses, I would imagine, watching this film.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that.
Or lavender, as the case may be. On the third viewing, which this was my third time watching it, there are definitely, I mean, it's not a perfect movie by any means,
No.
but
Right.
it does
But what it does is
what it's
so
set out to
impressive.
do.
Yeah.
I think it nails.
Yeah.
And where it falls the most are outside of that
Yeah,
area.
100%.
Definitely isn't.
100% agree.
No.
Yeah, I feel like you can tell that that Richard Stanley, maybe he's a little rusty around the edges. It's been a little while since he's gotten an opportunity to do something,
Yeah.
and I think he did a marvelous job. It's just that there were just some things that I kind of was like,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah.
I get it. I thought that the horror of some of the moments
Oh, God.
really made up for any of the things that didn't quite work for me story-wise.
Sure.
So I definitely went in with rose-colored glasses on this one
Yeah.
because I love this story and I really like Richard Stanley. You were talking about the low budget and everything.
Yeah.
Budget of $6 million. $3 million above the line. So effectively
Wow.
a $3 million budget on
Wow.
that film,
Holy
which is
shit.
pretty impressive.
It's incredibly impressive, and I was actually really excited because at the end they had like a pre-recorded Q&A with Patton Oswalt and
right.
Richard
Yeah.
Stanley and Nicolas Cage and a couple of the other actors. Who
Nicolas
came up.
Cage in what might be the most ridiculously awesome jacket I've ever seen anybody wear.
I'm sorry I missed
So many
this.
studs. So many studs. Oh, you're
And
like,
a
you don't
belt
want to hug
buckle
that
that
man.
was like
He's huge.
the size of
He
your
was
face.
rock. Man, that guy's insane, but in a great way because he's like really supportive of indie filmmakers, which is
Yeah.
awesome. But Nicolas Cage straight up gives a shout out to the editor who
Yeah.
I've been just talking
come
with
on,
a
just
tiny
say
bit.
it. You
No,
know,
we've been
Mom.
emailing back and forth because I'm a total nerd, and I was like, I loved Mandy. Let's chat, and it turned out we went to the same university, and so we've kind of been talking about it a little bit.
Fantastic.
And it was just it was such a pleasure to hear Nicolas Cage straight up say, thank you, editor, and B, to be like, oh my God, it's the same kid who did Mandy. Yes. And then I was like, wait, are you only ever going to be able to edit enormous, like strange, surrealist pieces, sir? Yeah, but that was so cool.
And you look him up, it turns out he's also the editor on The Marriage Story.
I feel like it's a lot less
range.
work to do
Oh,
Marriage
yeah.
Story than this
Oh, yeah.
one.
Well, that's nice. I want to give a little shout out to Danny Williford, who also went out and saw it, and we chatted a little bit behind the scenes afterwards,
cool.
and he really enjoyed it. And I know that so this was hosted, I think, by Brian and Gwen from the H.P. Lovecraft film.
Yes.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
They
we
did
were-
a little introduction thing at the beginning and talked about how it came a little bit. I think they could have taken a little more. This happened largely because of us.
Right.
They touched on that, but to let you all know, I can flat out credit the Lovecraft Film Festival and Brian Gwen, I think, for this happening, because
Really?
basically all the people who came together to make it happen all met there, 2-3 years ago?
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And it just built from that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Nicolas Cage wasn't there, but
Right.
Well, in spirit, he was.
yeah.
He's a little bit of Nicolas Cage is in us all.
Well, his family was at the screening in Oregon.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
didn't-
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
That was kind of
Yeah,
strange.
and I will say, like, I just want to put the caveat on that I'm probably going to be closest in this room to the voice of somebody who is like a normal audience viewer, in that I don't have I actually haven't read Color Out of Space, and I don't know the H.P. Lovecraft world super well. So if you aren't one of the Lovecrafters or crafting, whatever people call themselves,
Crafties, we
Crafty.
prefer.
Oh, Crafty's nice.
Crafties,
Let's
I
go
love
to
it.
Michael's after this.
I have a little storybook that I want to make, just telling the
right.
tale of my vacation. We'll get stickers and sequins. So, but I do want to say, so if you don't have a lot of H.P. Lovecraft fanboy in you, it's still an amazing film.
Yeah.
Definitely check it out. It is so worth seeing. Just like how like Mandy is a great experience. Sometimes it's just good to experience something that's different from your outside narrative.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree with that. All right, guys, I started watching, and I wonder if anybody else has The Outsider on HBO.
No.
Yeah. Watch the first 3.
The first 3 are out
So,
now.
okay, then
Yeah,
I've
no
wa-
one
I'm-
coming up. The first 2 episodes were so strong
Yeah.
that I was just blown away by the acting, by the directing, which was done by, what's his name? Bateman.
Oh, that's right.
He
yeah.
directed the first 2 episodes, and he stars in
Stars in.
And then the third episode was also really strongly directed, but in a completely different way. I was noticing,
that's
I
true.
was like, do they have a different director of photography, or is the director just this visual? I mean, the way every scene started was like a hot focus on like a small item that would suddenly, move into a different.
Boy, he or she loved that.
Yeah.
That reveal.
Yeah, and I kind of did too. But do you guys ever get this when you're watching something and there's such a interesting photography style that it almost pulls you out of the
Yes.
story, because
Oh,
you're
yeah.
kind of
Oh,
like, oh wow,
totally.
that looks great, but
It
I
doesn't.
shouldn't be thinking that while I'm watching a movie.
The style is like overtaking the story.
I think it definitely did. The first few, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But by the end, I'm going, your directing is not enhancing the story now. It's distracting from the story.
Right.
Like the shot that was outside the room and 2 people were in another room talking.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, I don't know how long the song actually was, but it seemed like it was 4 to 5 minutes long. And the shot never changed.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which I think is a neat choice for a little bit.
Yeah.
Or if you really want to detach people from that scene.
I-
you know?
Or if
kind
you
of
want to
think-
introduce something.
Yeah.
Like if you want to start your audience outside of something and bring them into a space, that makes
Yeah.
sense. But I feel like every shot needs a reason for existing.
Well, that
Yeah.
shot was odd because the way it was shot felt like there was going to be a reverse reveal that somebody was listening to
Yes.
this, because
Yeah.
it made the audience feel like they were
Oh, interesting.
eavesdropping.
Yeah.
So-
Which is a really cool thing to pull off, but
If you do
it
it.
needs a reason.
Yeah.
Either maybe that conversation is really, really, really uncomfortable. It looked cool.
Yeah.
It was visually a cool show, but the first 2 episodes were more accomplished overall.
They were so strong. Yeah.
How many episodes are
It's
there?
going to be 10, which seems a little odd.
little
I've read
long
the
for what's
source
happened
material,
already.
and by the end of the second episode, we were about halfway through the book. So I was
Wow.
like, where are they going to go with this now? They're going to take an awful long time to tell the rest of this story.
Interesting.
I'm all in, though. I think
Yeah.
it's a really,
that
really
HBO?
well done adaptation. Yeah, HBO.
And what genre is it?
It's kind of horror via police procedural.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good
Interesting.
description, yeah.
Cool. Okay.
The first two episodes have a very heavy True Detective feel,
Yeah.
and then the third episode kind of gets away from that. But I'm all in. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I thought the book was pretty good. Kind of shits the bed at the end, like a lot of Stephen King's novels do. I still enjoyed it. So we'll see.
Be interesting to see if they alter the end then or do something different.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Hire Joe Hill to finish off.
Yeah, you didn't read the book,
No, I
right?
haven't.
So you probably
I remember
don't
you
know.
telling me about it. So
Okay.
when it started up, I was like, oh, I remember this one.
Yeah, it's a good book. I still think King is just a really solid writer. I think that his plotting maybe isn't as strong as his actual writing.
Interesting.
His character writing and what he does with characters,
Yeah.
even the smallest. Like you talked
About
last
John
week, I think
Carpenter.
it was, about the guy picking up the milk,
Yep.
and taking a drink. Stephen King writes those kind of characters
Right.
probably
So
better than
cool.
anybody else.
That's really interesting. That might explain a lot about why adaptations can sometimes struggle.
All right, probably one more I'm going to dive into. Go kind of quick though, because it was just more of a novelty thing that I ran into, where I was deep diving on the good old Amazon again, and this one pops up saying directed by Wes Craven. I'm like, the hell is this?
Interesting.
It's a made-for-TV movie he made in 1984 called Invitation to Hell.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I remember
Have you
this.
seen that one? Okay. Yeah, I figured you'd seen it because you are like the TV movie master. But it's got Richard Rothstein, who's written by him, who did Universal Soldier Money and was a showrunner for that, I think it was an HBO show called The Hitchhiker.
Oh yeah.
Pretty good.
It was it was kind of an anthology series, and
Yep.
some of them were really strong, some of them not.
But it stars Robert Urich from Vegas and Ice Pirates and Spencer for Hire, so an 80s staple, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And an even more, largely much longer than 80s staple, Susan Lucci, who had, I just had to write this down, 1,484 episodes of All My Children.
Oh my God.
And never
Way
got
to
a
go.
daytime Emmy.
I thought she did at the very end.
Oh, did she finally?
Maybe,
Oh,
yeah,
I
like
just remember that.
9 or 10 or 11 years running. or
Yeah,
something.
she had
Bravo.
nominated every fucking year.
That is a
and never got one.
hard-working lady here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no kidding, man. And Barry Oliver, who's in Neverending Story and Cocoon, and Soleil Moonfry, Punky Brewster.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All-star cast here.
Wow.
Basically,
Punky.
though, the story, it was fine. You know, it's Wes Craven, but with no budget. Guy moves to a small town or a town, and there's this crazy club that everybody's a part of, and it kind of makes people into Stepford families, more or less. So part of his family joins, but he doesn't. It's worth a watch, but it's not anything I'd say put Invitation to Hell at the top of your list. But as a Wes Craven fan, it was kind of cool to see something I'd never seen
Yeah.
from him before.
That same year, he would then do Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a busy year.
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, I don't know how much. Does it take more or less energy to make a made-for-TV movie than a film?
I would think less.
I would think more because your time frame to do it is.
Well, depends on it. Yeah, I was going to say, depends on how you track
Yeah.
that. As far as days and time, less. As far as energy per day, probably a lot more.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking, because you have to put so much more in for so much less outcome.
Yeah.
My guess is from
And they're longer.
production to finished product, it was probably 6 weeks or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus Christ. That's exhausting to think about. I haven't yet to do like a breakneck. Oh, no, I actually have done one feature at that speed, and it was insane. People nearly died. It was good.
Well, does anybody
Don't
else
do
have
that,
something you
people.
want to do a quick chat about, or shall we?
I'm ready to jump on in.
All right, let's take a little break, and we will come right back and jump into what we're talking about this week, which is KinderTrauma.
is for everybody, not just for the few. Anyone can share VD with someone nice as you.
you're curious or confused, get information or a pamphlet at most pharmacies or a health clinic. If you need help, see a doctor.
And we are back. Are we back?
I'm facing forwards, but you do you.
Okay. We were talking about KinderTrauma today, and the whole point of this was all of us, I think every kid probably has a movie that they were too young to see, and it somehow, you know, is factored into their life in one way or another. The big one, of course, I talked about last week, which was Jaws. You know, it became my favorite movie, but it absolutely affected the way I look at water and things like that.
Yeah.
As a horror fan, I really could have chosen maybe 40 movies for this topic that I probably should not have seen.
We're all
thanks
just
to my
living
brother.
through our traumas over
there
and
you
over
go.
again.
Yeah, thanks to my brother, who, you know, he was a horror fan, and I wanted to be like him, and so I was all into that stuff too. And he was just more than happy. We had, of course, the late night chiller theater, you know, on Channel 7 at 11:30 on Friday nights and stuff that I would fall asleep about 4 minutes into. But
And then hear everything.
yeah, his whole thing was, you know, all right, we're making popcorn, we're watching movies and all this stuff, and then I would be zonked out. But the one I chose is from 1977, and it is called Beyond the Door 2.
Marco, that's my name. Now your lunch is ready. Here I come, Mama.
Your daddy is dead, Marco.
What is death, Mama?
Death is like going on a trip, darling, only one doesn't come back.
Let's get rid of them.
Why don't we leave this house? Why?
Mama, I have to kill you.
It's Carlo. That's the proof. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of staying alone, of hearing and seeing things. I'm even afraid of my own son.
Dora, what is it?
It's also known as something else.
The
now,
original
too.
title was Shock.
Oh,
It was called Beyond the Door 2 here in the U.S., and it came here in 79, which means I saw it when I was 10 years old. Have either of you seen this?
No.
Yes.
I think, yeah.
I saw it just recently. It's been on my to-watch list for a long time.
I have you to thank for finding this for me again, because I knew that I wanted to talk about this film, and I couldn't find it. And you did some research and found it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Under the name Shock, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So let me tell you a little bit about this movie. It was directed by Mario and Lamberto Bava. I am not a huge fan of Italian horror. This one does not feel like the giallo kind of stuff that I don't like, though.
It's a little off from their normal brand. Isn't it like one of their last films or something?
It's Mario's last film, and I think that Lamberto kind of convinced him and got him back into making this movie, and he died before it was released. So Lamberto finished it for him. I don't like most of the Italian stuff, but I do like these particular directors. Mario did Planet of the Vampires and Black Sabbath. Lamberto did Demons 1 and 2, Delirium. And I do love those movies. And it's probably because my taste in horror veers towards supernatural or otherworldly instead of slasher type stuff.
Yeah.
Love Demons. I think of that group you just made. Demons is probably my favorite.
Yeah, that's a blast of a movie. This was written by Lamberto and 3 other writers. I think somebody had a story credit, and then somebody came in. Once Lamberto picked it up, he did a full rewrite on it. Stars Daria Nicolidi, who is from Deep Red and Phenomena. Very
different.
Phenomena.
It's one letter, but surprisingly different films.
Yes, very, very different movies. Okay, so I could find no budget for this. The box office turned out to be about $112,000. The Rotten Tomatoes, the critics, nothing I could find, no critic reviews for this. The audience has this at 43%. I mean, it's a hit and miss movie. I don't want to say that it's a great movie, although upon rewatching it, I was struck by how decent it actually was. I thought it told a pretty creepy, scary story. The original Beyond the Door. Did either of you see that?
No.
Not that.
Okay, that is an Italian ripoff of The Exorcist. It's got a child who is possessed by the devil. This has zero connection to that.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah, they decided to call it Beyond the Door 2 because it has a slight little possession storyline going on in it, and the child in this is the same child who is possessed by the devil in Beyond the Door.
Wow.
And I think that's why they were trying to call it Beyond the Door.
Man, that
2.
kid's got a messed up life, man.
Man,
He's Italian.
that kid was a solid little actor, too.
Yes,
I thought he was fucking great. So it's about Dora and her son and new husband who move into the home that she and her first husband had shared. And the husband in the past killed himself. The new husband is gone a lot. He's a pilot, and his whole idea of wanting to move back into this house actually makes sense because it's closer to the airport, all of that stuff.
It's a hell of a house.
It's a pretty fucking great looking house. And while he's gone, Dora is, it seems like she's being haunted by the ghost of her husband.
It's all the exploring she did.
Yeah.
I was holding my tongue so hard. I should have just gone for it.
And it then also would seem that their son is being possessed by the ghost of her dead husband.
Oh, that's awkward.
It's a really creepy
Yes.
fucking thing going on. This kid is like 10 years old. He's great.
Oh my gosh.
So as we get deeper into the story, things start coming out, and the story of her husband killing himself starts not quite making sense. There's this is where it turns mostly, I think, into Italian horror cinema,
very much.
where it's all mood. A lot of the scenes don't quite make sense, but they are still creepy.
Yep.
So you're just kind of like, I'm going to stick with this because I'm scared, but I don't understand a fucking thing that's going on right now.
And there's the really strange set pieces, like that giant finger sculpture, and just like that's just weird, but it adds something weird to the film.
I feel like that had to be in Lamberto's house, and he was like, I really love this finger. I'm making sure it's in the movie somewhere. I don't know if I want to give too much away. If you want to watch it, it is available on Prime. I think you can guess that maybe the husband didn't kill himself. But
the rest is worth checking
the
out.
way that it becomes revealed is kind of interesting. I didn't see it going that way. So I was happy with that. The scene that stuck with me most was there is a scene where a box cutter is floating through the house, and it's actually chasing the woman.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And at 10 years old, okay, so we had box cutters all through the house and X-Acto knives. My brother was a model maker, so X-Acto knives were in his room all the time.
Oh my God.
I remember cutting myself very, very badly on my thumb with a box cutter. And then seeing this thing, it comes zipping after her like a missile. You know, so she's got to dodge it, and it's like slashing at a door and everything. And it fucking scared the hell out of me. To the point where, I was already writing stories and everything, and I told you, after Star Wars, they were all space opera, and then after The Omen 2, they became devil stories. Well, I had then this kind of serial killer type guy who was, I called him the Boogeyman, and he could transport himself through closets. Oh. And he carried a big, long X-Acto knife that he would cut you up with, and if he couldn't reach you, he could then shoot it towards you, and it would follow you around and everything.
Wow.
This thing just terrified me. It's way too young to see it. I really did love it. Let me tell you how I saw it.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
I've been waiting.
My next, not my oldest sister, but my next older sister, I guess you would call her. How do you say that? She was older than me. Okay. She and her boyfriend used to go to the drive-in theater up in Bellingham all the time, and and my dad was a commercial fisherman. He was gone 6 months out of the year. A lot of times my mom would then travel up there and she'd be gone for a month or something like that. And then it fell to my sister to take care of me. They would go to the drive-in all the time, probably to have sex or something like that. But they would just throw me in the back. We're going to see a movie and everything. I saw this with a double feature. I don't remember. Oh, I do remember, actually. The movie that it double featured with was Invasion of the Brain Snatchers or something like Brain Snatchers from Outer Space. I don't know. It was a
floating brains.
The
more
title,
schlocky.
the title was a Body Snatchers ripoff. The movie was nothing like that. Brain Snatchers from Outer Space, I think maybe. But so they just threw me in the back of the station wagon, and I would fall asleep pretty quickly, right? Not in this fucking movie. I just glued to this movie, terrified. I think they were probably incredibly bored with it.
Yeah.
But I was stuck with it. I told you about the boogeyman story. The basement in this movie is pretty fucking creepy, and we lived in a gigantic house with a really fucking creepy basement that had a dirt floor. And I remember, my brother was such an asshole. A little aside, my brother would do stuff like a mom hid your Christmas presents down in the basement.
Oh, no.
She did? Yeah, I saw them. They're down in that one corner.
Oh, my God.
And I'd go down there, and then he'd shut the door and lock it.
Yep. I totally experienced that. Older siblings.
Yeah. Yeah, Kayla, if you're listening, your Uncle Chris was a real dick to me. His other favorite thing, because his room was so fucking cool, it just had all these models in it, and toys and horror things. And I would just stand outside his door and, can I come in your room? And he'd go, you can come in if you can say the alphabet. And I'd go, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. And he'd go, wrong, and shut the door.
Were you supposed to say the alphabet?
No, it didn't matter what I would have said. He'd just say wrong and shut the door on me.
Oh my God. Dick, move.
I know. He's pretty great.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, I can, just by telling these stories, I'm sure you guys have figured out why I turned out the way I did.
Sure helps.
I feel like we're stitching together the quilt that makes up Kelly.
Yeah.
This was one that you'd mentioned in the past about being something that freaked you out.
Yeah.
So I had never seen it, so I thought, well, I'm going to watch it because I know what we're talking about. I'll bet this movie will come up. So you said you're around 10. The story, the kid's like a 10-year-old redhead little kid. I watched this going, oh, shit. This one would have been horrifying to see at that age. I'm just like, because it's so, like you're saying, the Italian, it's so visceral. You're not watching it just for the story, although it has a solid story there. But there's mental impressions and emotional impressions that are really gnarly and dark.
Yeah, upon rewatch, and I am a jaded old man now, and upon rewatch, I was like, this has some creepy moments in it. And for me to think that now means that, at 10 years old, I didn't know fucking anything. I must have just been out of my mind after this movie.
Oh, no. So was there any physical things that you started doing, like being afraid of going towards the knot, like the X-Acto knives and the box cutters more so?
No, but because they were around the house, like I said, my dad was a commercial fisherman. He was also a contractor and builder. And so we just had tools all over the place. And no, because remember, I cut myself really badly with the box cutter. And it was because I was just fucking around. I think I was trying to carve a piece of wood or something stupid with it that you do when you're a kid. And I remember my dad, I'm holding my hand, which is just gushing blood. And my dad, wraps a big, huge rag around it. And he goes, listen, Kelly, there's a couple of things you need to learn. You never piss against the wind. And you always whittle away from yourself.
Good advice.
Yeah, my dad was just one of these very practical kind of guys.
Very nice.
Okay, that was my movie. I want to hear about yours.
I guess I'll dive in next.
Okay, great.
Mine was, as far as a rewatch goes, far less traumatic. It was also about the same time, though. A movie came out in 1980 called The Island.
The Caribbean, a vacationer's paradise. And yet this region was once a stronghold for outcasts, thieves, and murderers. A savage race that vanished hundreds of years ago. But what if there were survivors? And what if they kept their existence a secret from the outside world? What if someone found out? The island, where civilization as we know it has taken a bizarre turn.
Who are you? I mean, all of you. Are you some kind of religious cult?
If I'd wanted to hit you, I could have hit you.
How dare you speak to your father like that?
You're not my father.
Stop this make-believe.
Fire!
Pirates? I know it sounds crazy, but you better believe me.
All those who have discovered the island have never been seen again. The Island, the super thriller from the author of Jaws and The Deep.
Find the Maynard man. Cut his throat.
Mayday! Mayday! You guys wouldn't believe what happened!
Now, the most terrifying thing in the water is the island.
Based on the Peter Benchley book?
That's
that
the
island?
one.
Okay, I remember this movie.
Yeah, that's the one. This does have ratings because it had a fairly large theatrical release because that's the guy that wrote Jaws, so got a good push. 40 from the critics, 51 from the audience. Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I would have disagreed with that before rewatching it, but I agree with it now. Budget of $22 million, a box office of 15.
22 million. Boy, that was a big budgeted film. Well, of course, right after Jaws, they were probably throwing money at his name.
Yeah. The directed by Michael Ritchie, who you'd know from The Bad News Bears. So they had, at the time, kind of a hot director and semi-tough and lesser student bodies in the Fletch movies.
Oh, boy.
Which is a strange combination of films for the film that is being made here. Written by Peter Benchley. He wrote the script for it as well. Starring some pretty cool people. Michael Caine was the main
Michael
actor.
Caine.
Nice.
Right. If you don't know who that is, go watch more movies.
Don't start with Alfie.
He's been in 175 things at least. David Warner, who you also recognize. I talked about him before because he played Jack the Ripper in Time After Time. Mm-hmm. He's also in Mouth of Madness, Star Trek V. He's got 225
I was going to
credits.
say he's like in every movie you've ever seen.
Yes. And he has changed so much. The way he looks, like the photo of him I was looking at on IMDb is him kind of now or a few years ago versus what he looked like then. And he looks very, very different.
Huh. I didn't realize he was still alive even.
I don't know if he is, but the older guy versus the younger one in the island is strikingly different. And Don Henderson, whose claim to fame is he was the guy that was choked by Darth Vader in Star Wars.
Oh my God. It's funny because you say that and I instantly know who this is.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to go with, I'll explain the movie a little bit more, but I think I know why this movie bothered me at the time. The main storyline is a son and a father. And a son and a father my parents weren't parents, they divorced years later, but at the time they were still together. So Dad and I would go out and we'd do hiking and mountain climbing and all that kind of stuff. And this is kind of the storyline of a father and son not doing that, but doing something along that line. So I probably fell into, oh, this is cool, Dad. And then the movie starts going a little bit further. It's way too long. This is about 2 hour, 5-minute movie or something like that. And it easily needs half an hour cut out. Basically, it's a story kind of investigating the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh.
Where it starts off with some rich people who've rented a boat and they're out fishing and they're relatively racist and mean to the boy that's helping them on the boat. And these pirate kind of guys show up and a couple moments of fairly horrific violence right at the beginning of hacking a guy's face in half and gutting another guy's like, holy shit. And when I was a kid, violence like in The Thing didn't really bother me that much.
Right.
But I had a really hard time watching movies like Dirty Harry. And so violence that felt very real world messed with me a lot more. So I'm sure that one did. But Kane finds out about it. He decides, I'm going to go down and investigate this because, investigative reporters of the 70s.
Oh, yeah. Big deal.
But his kid joins him, and on the way down, they decide to stop by a gun shop, and he buys him a .22 pistol.
What?
Okay.
Okay.
Random, but what the hell?
I mean, that's so normal for father-son outings.
Sure. Going on a boat. Let's go on a boat and charter a plane. Let's get a gun.
Let's get a gun.
Don't tell you I fish, son.
And this time, then it goes back to another group of people in the water who get taken out by the pirates.
Yeah.
And at that point, it's like, oh, they're getting a few more people to be present when they capture Kane and his son. No, not really. They just wanted to keep the violence going. And they land the plane, and plane crashes, so they can't leave. So they've got some time there before they can do something for some reason. So what are they going to do? Let's go on a fixing exhibition. Hey!
Why not? Again, father-son.
Of course, they get captured, but when they get captured, the dad pulls out the gun and shoots one of the guys. So instead of killing them, the pirates capture them and take them to their village, where they do this very strange trial. And the kid and the dad are separated, and they brainwash the kid into hating his dad and stuff. So I'm like, okay, I think I know why this movie bothered me. It's very uncomfortable in that, and a large portion of the movie is Michael Caine trying to escape and figure out how to free his kid. And that much of the movie is actually pretty good. Up until this point, it's been pretty good. They keep Michael Caine around because he's good breeding guy.
Yeah.
Because, they're all inbred pirates. So
Oh, that's right.
So they're having a hard time breeding, and there's only one woman there that's available that can also make kids, but all the guys keep stillborn. So they keep him so he can breed the lady.
I forgot what a bizarre movie this was.
It really
As you're
is.
saying this, I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, nothing about this sounds normal.
Yeah.
Everything about this sounds just off.
But and all of it worked. Or they find out there's a large schooner boat, and you realize what either Peter or the director really wanted to make was a pirate movie. Because this is a schooner with the big masts
Oh my
and all
God.
that.
Yeah.
And then they get into their little boats that they have, and they go out, and the music becomes this oddly heroic music.
Wow.
Where I was like, am I watching a Captain Blood movie? Are these horrible, hideous people who've been torturing these kids and messing with his dad are now, let's go be pirates. Oh my God. So they go out and they capture the schooner and kill most of the people on there. But since it's the 70s, there's a very obvious rich white preppy guy who knows karate. So there's a scene where this one guy stands in his way too small swimming trunks and fights like 3 or 4 of the pirates before they finally just say, oh, screw it, and kill the guy. This is such a strange scene of pointlessness.
Was the small swimming trunks the traumatic moment of this film?
No. They probably were a little weirder. I probably was just like, it's the 70s. That's what swimming trunks looked like then, man. Or the 80s, probably, actually. What shorts were. Look at basketball. And then it goes back and it becomes kind of dark and tortury again. And then the National Guard, or not the National Guard, the Coast Guard shows up and they start the battle. And then they go out in their boats again, and it becomes like the happy pirate movie guys.
Oh my God.
Going off to kill the Coast Guard.
Oh my God. This director really wanted
is the tone
that.
of this movie, man?
Oh my God.
I feel like, because Jaws kind of has that too. Once they get on the water, the music becomes kind of this adventure.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was just kind of the thing. It was like, look, if you're on a boat, you're on an adventure.
That's right, I guess so. We're going to go slash people's throats and gut them. Yay!
Here we go.
The ending is the way Michael Caine takes out almost everybody is fairly easy. I'm not, sorry guys, I'm not going to worry about spoilers on this one, partially because, like I say before, if you don't want to it spoiled, just fast forward till I stop talking. But this is not a movie that I feel you need to go out and necessarily see. So Caine gets on the boat and finds this giant machine gun that for some reason the Coast Guard guys did not use, and just mows down all of the pirates, because at this point they've won, so they're getting all their booty and getting it to get off the boat, so they're all standing in one place. So he shoots all of them, except for the leader, of course, the guy who's made the kid call him father. Somehow those two survive. The kid wasn't there, which is probably for the best, but neither was this one guy. Amazing. So they come up off the end of the boat after Kane's been doing all the shooting. You're like, oh. And he ends up, taking the guy out with a signal flare. He shoots the lead pirate with a signal flare, which in my head was so much more violent than it actually is on screen.
Interesting.
So whatever that moment was messed with me too.
Wow.
The idea of shooting fire or something into somebody and them. I had this very, very graphic image, which I think is from a different movie because it's not there.
Yeah.
Because I go, oh, that's not the scene I remember.
This is how KinderTrauma works.
Yeah.
Is that it affects you until you're just sitting there, you've got this thing in your head, and then you go back as an adult and you're like, I don't even know if it was this movie.
Yeah, exactly. There's another film like that was more like a Death Wish kind of movie. It wasn't a Death Wish film, but that kind of movie where it's just one scene. I don't remember anything else from the movie where these guys are robbing a liquor store or something, and there's a older couple there, and they can't get the woman's wedding ring off. So instead of just leaving it, they get a pair of bolt cutters or something and just cut her finger off to take it.
Oh my gosh.
I hated that scene, man. Oh. My God, I hate that scene so much. Yeah, so that was the one that got me, The Island, and doesn't traumatize me so much anymore.
Do you feel like it was therapeutic rewatching?
Sure. It's more just like dismissive, I think, almost, as opposed to therapeutic. It's like, really? The Thing, Alien. Well, Alien did send me out of the room at one point, and a lot of these films you watched, and this was the one that, okay.
Wow. What a bizarre, surreal film. But I think those do stick with you when you're like a kid, and especially a lot of those made-for-TV movies are just tonally do shift back and forth, and they feel so weird.
Yeah, definitely. So
Benchley wrote so many good books, and really the only good adaptation was Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
Because The Deep
was
a gigantic flop and a really shitty movie right after Jaws, and then The Island. And then I even think, didn't he have that TV movie that was kind of about the Meg or something like that, the Beast or something?
That sounds familiar, but I don't.
It was also just another turd.
Yeah, I think this would be a good book because you don't have that weird music. Change.
I can remember the cover vividly with the hand coming out of the water with the knife and the tattoo on the hand or arm. Yeah.
Yeah, that first 40 some odd minutes are pretty good, pretty weird, uncomfortable, strange, and then it's Captain Blood, whatever, man.
Wow, I couldn't even finish the thought. You were so dismissed with this.
Yeah, no kidding. You're just like, oh.
Well, I thought I owned it. I was like, oh man, maybe I should just buy this. And then I was like, watch it, go, thank God I didn't just buy this.
Okay.
All right. Well, last, but hopefully not least.
I doubt it.
So
bring it on.
I went ahead and rewatched Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge.
Someone is coming back to Elm Street. He is not friendly. He is not patient.
Kill for me.
And he is not a welcome visitor. But he has something terribly special for the new kid on the block.
It started to happen again. Dad! I'm in trouble. You've had some scary dreams, okay? Help!
Daddy can't help you now.
There's something inside him.
Fight him! You are not afraid of him. He doesn't even exist.
Freddy Krueger is back on Elm Street.
Get out of here, Lisa!
Jesse, fight him!
Watch out for him. He'll be in your neighborhood soon. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 2.
You are all my children now.
Freddy's Revenge.
So this is and I'll kind of get to why I chose this in a bit, because it's really random. But this is a 1985 film, 87 minutes long, rated R. It did phenomenal box office. It cost $3 million and took in $30 million. which
Nice.
is just crazy. It was really the first big signal to New Line to just run with the Freddy series. Just take it and just go, because this is going to pay everybody's salaries. But the critical response was not great. It was 41% critics and 33% audience.
Wow.
So basically everybody went and saw it and nobody really liked it.
Yeah.
I remember going to see it and
Did
not
you really?
liking it. Yeah, I was like, oh.
Same here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it kind of pretends in certain ways that it's part of that franchise, but then there's a lot of little things that it just isn't as good. It just doesn't, it's not as successful in a lot of ways.
Story-wise, at Freddy, it's far more of a slasher film as opposed to I'm messing with your dreams weirdness.
Yeah, there's
film.
there's more surrealism in it than I thought or expected, I guess, watching it. Because I remember watching Never Sleep Again and kind of glazing through this and being like, oh, that sounds kind of dumb or whatever. And I thought it was going to be much more about the like homoeroticness that a lot of people address with this movie. And actually there was a lot more of that kind of surrealism that I thought was going to be there. But as far as the character of Freddy, I think they were still sussing it out. They said this is the first time that they got him to like talk a bit more. And of course they just ran with that. I mean, once they opened his mouth, could not shut it. So this is directed by Jack Shoulder, who did The Hidden Arachnid, The Omen TV movie, Wishmaster 2, Renegades. He was actually chosen because he'd been doing some trailers for New Line. He was a bit of an editor, very technical guy. So if you do choose to watch Never Sleep Again, he's just so boring. He's just, I mean, the man, I was like, you cannot get emotional anything out of it. He doesn't even smile. He just looks like he should work at Boeing. So,
ouch.
Yeah, I'm sure he was fine at the technical parts of this, but yeah, he looks like he's clueless. He looks like he'd be the guy when you're making like innuendos and he has no idea what's going on. So, which makes a lot of sense. The writer was David Chaskin, who wrote The Curse, and he did the TV movie Midnight Child.
Is that the Wes Craven film, The Curse, or a different one?
I don't know.
No, I think that's the Lovecraft adaptation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Of The Color Out of Space.
And he's kind of an interesting guy too, because he was a bit of a cameraman and he was an editor for he did some editing for the Hollywood Erotic Film Festival. Sure. So he's just a well-rounded guy. He's kind of an interesting character to be writing this. It stars, as you guys know, Robert Englund. If you don't know who he is, look at the box cover of literally any like Nightmare on Elm Street piece. Then we've got Mark Patton, who had previously been in Comeback to Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, which I've never seen, so I don't know anything about that.
Just sounded cool.
Yeah, and he did a couple roles after, but I wouldn't say that he had like a breakthrough career. Kim Myers, who she plays kind of the cute girl who likes the boy, I guess. It's kind of hanging out with him more than she should. She ended up being in Hellraiser Bloodline, The Pretender. She did 8 episodes of that. 10,000 Days, 11 episodes of that. So she's done a lot of really small roles. And her kind of big thing is she looks a lot like Meryl Streep.
Yeah, I remember kind of having a bit of a crush on her. She's a pretty
She's
Meryl
a
Streep.
pretty girl. Yeah, and actually it's funny because in the documentary they're like, yeah, so we hired her completely off of her talent. She just came in, she auditioned, she nailed it. And she looked like Meryl Streep. I was like, I knew that there was I was like, I'm not the only one. She looks creepily like Meryl Streep. But I mean, she was great. She did a wonderful job. Robert, I can't read my own handwriting. Ruswa? Anyway.
Robert.
He plays the hot, like, jock guy who wrestles around a lot with the main character. That's all you really need to know about him. I guess he was a semi-pro skater, surfer, and then he kind of fell into acting. He ended up as one of the leads in Weird Science. He was in Thrashing.
One of the bullies
Jock
along with
guys,
Robert Downey Jr.
Absolutely. Ended up also in a Stephen King movie of the week, Sometimes They Come Back. And actually, interesting fact for us, he was in 3 episodes of Light as a Feather.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, I wonder if that was a specific decision. but I think I'm going to pretend in my mind that it was. The plot is basically a family moves into the old Nightmare on Elm Street house. The son is really awkward. He's really socially challenged, and he suffers from what I think is basically night terrors. So he has a lot of nightmares. The first scene is kind of him, like, he has this immediate Freddy nightmare. That's where we start off, on this bus that has all these kids on it. They let all the kids out except for 2 girls, and it is being driven by actually Robert Englund, not Freddy, just
Right.
Robert Englund.
Oh, yeah.
And so you kind of know what's gonna come. It drives off into the desert for no reason, and it's the kid sitting in the back and 2 girls with him, and just kind of ends up driving off this cliff, and then they're being tortured and running back and forth on the bus, and Freddy's coming after them. It's a really weird scene too, because it's it plays in multiple parts of fear, because it's not only, oh my God, we're on this bus that's tipping back and forth off of this precipice, but also we have to get closer to Freddy, who's walking down the aisle with his shears in order to keep the bus on balance. So it was like, wow, this is actually a really interesting way of like building that fear tension. So the kid wakes up screaming, and his parents are like, meh, no big shakes. So that's where I assumed he had night terrors, because I was like, why else would your parents never give a crap when you wake up screaming all the time? He's definitely super socially challenged. He's meant to be a kind of awkward, nerdy, like kind of creepy guy in the back. And essentially he has a hard time like getting into making friends at school, but then I guess that turns around really, really quickly. They go from like, oh, he's a total social outcast, to him being like, oh, I have these friends who really care about me, very quickly and without any particular reason, I guess. So, but while he's moved into this house, basically Freddy is taunting him and aiming to possess him. And the film is him trying to fight against this possession of Freddy Krueger, basically losing at a bunch of times. So Freddy kind of takes over his body and tries to murder people in him, which is also really interesting, because I thought that played really well with this fear of not being in control of yourself. It did a great job of him just, at one point he's hovering over his sister. You watch Freddy hover over the sister, this little cute girl in a nightgown sleeping, and Freddy's just over her, and you've got that like, oh, not only might he like cut her up, but he's also a pedophile. It's like terrifying.
Yeah.
And then she wakes up and kind of looks at him, and it's her brother. So it's kind of flipping between it, and he just backs off. He's like, oh my God, go back to sleep, go back to sleep. And he backs out of the room. So he's fighting back and forth with being this horrific killing machine and himself. I will say that this film, the sets are shit. It looks bad. It looks real bad. There's actually some decent prop and special effects work that is working pretty well. I think there's some, it's weird. It feels very unbalanced, because when you're inside the house, you're like, man, I don't feel like I'm in a house at all. Nothing makes sense. There's just crap thrown everywhere. You go down to the basement. I wrote down at one point, like, just crap everywhere and a rake. I was like, I mean, you know, Freddy's going to be down there because there's a rake awkwardly laying at the bottom of the stairs.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
sure.
And just
That's what you do with the basement. You rake it.
Yeah. That's where you keep your rake, I guess, is in the basement.
And lawnmower. It's a bitch getting it back up the stairs. But
I didn't even think about that. Just bumping it along. Oh, gotta mow the fucking lawn again, Mom. Ooh, it's a huge pain. The parents, like, there's a lot of weird things going on. Like, it does shift the way in which people are acting towards each other pretty drastically. So the parents seem like they care about this kid at the start. And then they like, the mom does, but the dad is such a dick. He's like, oh, you're doing meth, aren't you? And like, it's just weird. He just all of a sudden thinks his kid is insane. Oh, that one of the parents, it's really hot in the house all the time because, you know, Freddy is cooking underneath it. And I guess is the implication. And they have these parakeets or little birds, and they manage to kind of escape, and they peck at somebody's hand who's trying to feed them and start flying around the room. And one of them explodes and like catches on fire, and they're in the kitchen afterwards, and the dad is talking to the son, and he's like, you set this up, didn't you? You put a firecracker on it. I'm going to work out how you did this. I was like, what the fuck is your deal? Jesus Christ. You think your son just like blew up your family pet? And you're like, I'm going to get you, kiddo. Like, what are you even doing? So the film, it's a little lackluster in many different ways. I do think, like I said, the special effects look great. I think Freddy actually looks really good in it. I think they did a great job. I think there's lots of little things here and there that are really nice. Like he's putting his sweaters up in a closet, and he puts down a giant bulky green sweater and then a giant bulky red sweater. And so it's just little hints there, here and there, that sort of add up to something a little bit neat. I don't think they totally knew what they were doing, because in the Never Sleep Again documentary, only one person knew that there was going to be any gay subtext while they were making it, even after they finished. It wasn't until it came out.
Director though?
Nope.
Oh wow.
The director had no clue. The actors didn't really, in retrospect, they were like, yeah. But at the time, no one at New Line realized. The only person who knew there was and he meant for it to be subtext, was the writer. And he admits it. He's like, yeah, like I knew that there was going to be a little bit in there, but no one quite realized that the star of this would become a gay icon.
Yeah.
Sure has.
And it does a really interesting thing with role reversals too, because he plays kind of the screaming victim role.
Yeah.
And then the girl who he has a crush on ends up playing the guy role of coming in and saving him. So from Freddy and from himself and from his fears. So that was definitely interesting. If you guys watch it, skip through the pool scene. It sucks.
Oh man. Yeah.
It's so dumb. That whole part is so dumb. I don't even know who's there. I don't know why they're there. I don't know why Freddy. It's really great because Robert Englund, you can tell he's trying to be Freddy, but he's not trying to hurt anybody. So he's like picking up lawn chairs and just throwing them the opposite direction to like the actors and the extras. I was like, yeah, he's in it and he's going to throw shit, but not at you.
See, so now after this description, there's no way I'm skipping that scene.
It's so bad. I don't even know why this is happening, but like beer cans start exploding and like the pool is
does he jump
boiling.
through a screen door or double
something like that?
The glass explodes out and he suddenly appears.
Yeah.
Part of the problem with this film is that they set up some really definite rules in the first movie and then just kind of threw them all out for this one.
Yeah, and I think that they weren't really sure what to do. I mean, this being a franchise really almost threw them off, because originally they weren't going to have Robert Englund in it. In fact, they started shooting with an extra dressed up as Freddy, because they were like, Robert Englund's too expensive now. We don't want to use him. And what he does isn't that hard. So they put an extra in this makeup, and they were like, he was so bad. He was like Frankenstein. He didn't move right. Nothing looked good. It looked stupid as hell. So they went ahead and got Robert Englund in at that point.
There's a reason Robert Englund became iconic in that role.
Oh my God. He owns it. And you don't really realize until you, like, because I was always like, oh, Freddy, it's just a guy with, things on his fingers and he's running around with some burnt face. There's so much expression and there's so much going on within that character. And I will say that the possession part of this film works so beautifully. I think that kid battling this inner demon where it's literally popping out of his chest and it bursts through him is very alien. Yeah. And then in the reversal, when he starts to take back over and is peeling chunks of Freddy back off of his skin, there's just a lot of crazy cool looking shit in there.
So why did it mess with you?
The big question. Okay, so this is the first film I remember watching ever.
Wow.
I was 3 or 4.
Oh my God.
And and my brothers, who are older than me, one's 9 years older and one's 6, almost 7 years older than me.
Is your brother my brother?
I do wonder, because I was also locked in a basement. But they turned off the lights and wore masks and ran around.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Jesus. I'm a little traumatized. It's fine. And this was like, I mean, I have so many stories, but that's just, anyway. So this was actually a nice memory, as odd as that is, because there's a whole family, as in like my mom, my 2 brothers and me, I don't know where my sister was, we're sitting around watching this movie. I didn't know what I was watching. I was just a kid. We were just hanging out with the family. And my brothers are sitting on the floor glued to it. And it was, an HBO kind of thing. I think we got free cable for like half a second during a trial period. And so they're watching this. And my mom didn't realize, bless her, she didn't realize it was a horror film. She doesn't do horror films. She's really naive to the universe of anything that isn't Disney. She's like, I didn't expect this. So I don't think she wanted to take it away from my brothers, but she also didn't want me to see this. So she turned me around on her lap because I was a kid. I don't think I was capable of really being on my own, I guess. So she turns me around on her lap, and I watched the rest of the movie on the reflection of her glasses.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is a really early memory for me.
That feels even creepier somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forbidden kind of sneak. Yeah, that's
Well, I
wild.
mean, I didn't even know. I knew, exactly. I knew that I wasn't supposed to see it, but I wanted to see it because I didn't know what was wrong with it. I don't think I'd ever experienced a horror film before. So I was watching it, and the one scene that always stuck with me was there's a locker room scene where I knew that there was something creepy in this locker room, and they were like putting, opening and closing these lockers. And I did what you did, Eric. I actually combined an additional movie into this memory because I thought Freddy put himself, he stretched himself out into a long thing and went around in it. And that isn't from, I think that's from an X-Files episode.
Oh.
So,
wild.
But I do remember, and when I was watching, because for years I had this memory, I had no idea what film it was. I was like, I think it was a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I hadn't seen like another Freddy Krueger movie until the last couple of years. So I was just like, not really sure. And I described it to somebody, and I'm sorry, but if you tell people, I saw this creepy movie with a locker room, it was set in the 80s. You're not going to whittle that down.
That's a wide, yes.
It's a huge array. It's a huge array of stuff. So when I was watching this film, I was like, man, I hope this is the right one. And when they got to that locker room scene, it just snapped. And I was like, yep. The coach with all the balls flying at him, and the kid in the showers, and they just burst on, and then Freddy coming out through the mist. I was like, I so remember this so clearly now. But I didn't remember anything else from the film. So that was just the one scene that really stuck with me.
I'm fascinated with this idea of watching the reflection in the glasses. I feel like that has to be put into a story now. That's such an interesting thing.
Yeah, I feel like you can't make that up. And I actually wrote about that to get into film school. That was my film school entrance essay, was about my first film experience that I remember. So I guess I was really obsessed with Mary Poppins too, but I never remember watching that. So
Vanessa, you win today.
Yay!
That was
awesome.
That was an amazing little reveal. I love that.
Yay. Well, thank you guys also for sharing your inner KinderTrauma. I feel like this didn't super traumatize me other than just start to form me as a human being.
Right. Well, that's what trauma does.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Great. All right. Perfect. No therapy for me.
Well,
I got Kelly.
Well, there's that book out there somewhere. Therapy through films or something. It's a movie idea that if you're dealing with this, you should watch these films.
Wow.
Interesting.
Oh my God. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. I didn't do any more than pick it up and look at it, so I don't remember much detail.
There's actually a book that just came out this year or last year, I guess. It's like food from movies. And I was like, oh, cool. It's a cookbook. And it's like going to go through all these cool recipes from movies. No, it's crappy. It's just like a way to sell a really terrible book.
So I'll put out there the group think thing that if somebody out there in the Strange Aeons Radio Army knows that book I'm talking about, I would be curious to
post about it. It'd be great. Or have you tried it? Has it been successful for you if you've read this book and tried one of the methods? I would love to know. Tell us more. Write in.
Psychological healing through film.
Exactly. Tweet us.
I think it's funny you mentioned the Strange Aeons Radio Army because Ron has, started making all these little images that are popping up on Facebook with the hashtag Strange Aeons Army, which is really nice. Thanks,
That's
Ron.
so cool.
And
That's very
Danny
cool.
has reached out about doing some kind of merchandise for the show.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the only thing that's stopping us right now is I want to come up with a new logo for the show, and I don't want to put this current logo on something and then have it not reflect what's actually going on. Yeah. Anyway, I really appreciate all the people who were talking about the merchandise, which was Ron and Danny and Bob and Bob Foster and all that stuff.
Speaking
Bob Foster
of,
had brought up the idea of my shot glasses, and I had to remind everybody that my shot glasses are just regular tumblers.
Yeah.
So
those are your shots. But speaking of Bob, though, we got a new 5 challenge movie from him.
What did he send our way?
5-1 and Point of No Return, I believe it's called. It's a
interesting.
1960s I think, an early 60s, late 50s film.
Point of no
So
return.
I believe that's the name of it. I'm sure I've
I'm
got
trying
it.
to think. Is that the one with the white Challenger? I'll be interested to hear what you say
White
about that.
Challenger. But yeah, so we like getting more of those 5-star challenge films. Oh no, I was way off on the title. Not even freaking close. Panic in the Year Zero.
Oh,
That's a very different film. I mean, I don't know either of them, but they sound different. Way to insult our audience member who
I got the
struggled
first
and gave
letter
us-
correctly.
wow.
But
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
so put out those 5-star reviews. Give us some challenge, or give me some challenge movies wherever you want to put them. Just let us know, because Bob reached out as soon as he posted and said, "Hey, I did this. Great." Didn't show up for a day or so. So definitely let us know, because we might miss it.
And I also want to say thank you. I got a couple of personal messages on both Twitter and via email. On my website, I got a message from somebody. People that I knew from years ago have started listening, which is great. So thank you
very
so much
cool.
for that. That's awesome. We hope you find us entertaining and
That's nice. I feel like we must
keep
have
listening.
tens of people listening to it.
It's great. We could invite them all over and hang out in your living room.
Right. Okay.
With our merch.
Who's got the next topic?
That would be me. So in light of all the, we're in the awards season now. We're coming up on, we just did the,
Sure.
what was it, the Emmys? We're about to do the Oscars.
Yeah, yeah.
So with our lack of females being represented in the Best Director category, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there that we should go out and research films that ideally have female directors, or at least a very strong female presence, like a writer or be a female filmmaker.
Sure. Sounds
that
good.
works out, and it also jibes nicely with Women in Horror Month.
That's right. February is Women in Horror Film
right.
Month.
Women in Horror in General Month, not
Yes,
just film.
sorry. Yes.
So,
Well, Kelly has actually introduced this to me because I didn't know. I didn't realize. This is so awesome.
oh my God.
I know. I failed you all in
Turn
February.
in your woman card.
I will. I got to get it on my pocket first.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about next week. As always, thank you so much to everybody that's liking, sharing the posts. The reviews are fantastic. Thank you so much for subscribing and passing along all this information. We love you guys. And we will be back in 1 week to talk. What are we going to call this one?
Let's table that for now.
Okay.
And we'll think about it.
We're going to call it Women.
No,
I don't think so.
We're absolutely
That
not.
seems like a
calling
wrong
it
approach.
All right. See you guys in a week. Our show is recorded somewhere high above Naval Station Everett at the nexus of all realities and is engineered and produced by Eric Morgret. Our theme music is Strange Aeons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find Strange Aeons Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and wherever fine podcasts